Hey everybody, today I have flown out to an undisclosed location in Utah to take a look at this. This is the new 2025 Nissan Armada, known as the Nissan Patrol outside North America. We don't know all of the differences between the Armada that you're going to get here and the Patrol that you're going to get elsewhere in the world, but we will make some guesses and some logical assumptions. Also, hopefully we'll have some additional information from Nissan by the time this video goes live, so at the end of the video there may be a little bit more content on some of the differences. But let's take a look and see what makes this Armada different. Now, probably the first thing to know about the new Armada is that it is an all-new Armada. And of course, it is closely related to the Infiniti QX80. Outside of North America, that's probably the big thing to know, is that I suspect some of the features and luxury doodads that we will not get on the Armada will actually be present on the Patrol, because in the United States we have the Infiniti and the Nissan available, and in some markets the Patrol is going to be the only SUV offered in those markets. So up front we have definitely a different look than we find in the Infiniti. We have full LED headlights here with these LED daytime running lights. I'll just go ahead and turn on the turn signal so we can see what that looks like. This particular trim is the new Pro 4X model. This is a model that had been asked for by a lot of Nissan customers because they really wanted a more rugged expression of the Armada, and they wanted a more capable Armada. So this is not just an off-road looks package. We get the orange accents on the Nissan logo. I'll show you the platinum trim in a moment here in the video. We get the blacked out grille. Down at the bottom, it's a little bit hard to see, but we have a plastic skid plate right there, and then metal skid plates further under there with recovery hooks tucked really far under the bumper. I'm actually surprised how far under there they are. A big shout out to Sofian from Redline Reviews for holding the camera, so wave to him behind there. I'll let him move over to the side so you can actually see how far under here these recovery hooks really are. I mean, my elbow basically is at the front of the vehicle, quite far under there. We have LED fog lights there, and then since we're in the Pro 4X trim, moving around to the side, we have all-terrain tires. These are big all-terrain tires. These are 275/60 R20s, so big 20-inch wheel. Black wheels are the only way to go on the Pro 4X. I'd love to know what you guys think about that down there in the comments section below. The 20-inch wheel, I was a bit surprised they didn't go for a slightly smaller wheel with a bit more cushion, but that's actually still a pretty meaty off-road tire. It's not the most adventurous, of course. This is a Geolander tire, so you can obviously put more capable tires on your Pro 4X if you want to. And we have these standard running boards there. They're not powered, they're not rock rails, so keep those off-roading aspirations in mind. However, we do have an adaptive air suspension now, 4-corner, in the Patrol and in the Armada. And that's going to be standard in the Pro 4X, optional in the rest of the lineup. You'll find it basically in the top end trims. It's essentially the same 4-corner air suspension we find in the QX80, retuned of course for the Nissan, and one would assume probably retuned for the off-roading mission of this particular model. In the back we have again full LED lights with this LED light bar that runs all the way across the back. The LED light bar apparently is not going to be standard. If you look at the lower end trims, they're not going to get this particular touch in the hatch. Going in for a closer look at the taillights, you can see that we do have amber turn signals. That's a touch I really appreciate. And again, everything is an LED back here. I love the crispness of this design. It also looks like it's going to be pretty easy to clean because a lot of these surfaces are very flat. So we get the architectural detail of these various modules inside the taillights and inside the headlights both, but then they're covered with a clear plastic sheet to make it a little bit easier to clean. Of course, we still get this big hatch back here. And this is going to be one big reason to get the Armada over a Sequoia or honestly a Lexus LX, depending on the version you're looking at. And that's the amount of storage space we get back here. The Sequoia in the US at the moment is available only as a hybrid, and it does not have an independent suspension in the back. It's a solid axle design in the rear. It shares a lot with the pickup truck line at Toyota. And that means that the cargo area and the third row are both severely compromised. This doesn't have that same problem. We'll take a look at the third row in just a bit, but we should probably talk about what's on the back. This is, of course, a trailer on the back because Nissan says this will tow 8,500 pounds. That's not the most towing capacity in the full-size SUV segment, but it is pretty healthy. And we have an integrated trailer brake controller that I'm going to show you in a moment. All of that is possible because of what's going on underneath the hood. I'll just go ahead and pop that so we can take a look under there. As you might expect, this is essentially the same new 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 engine that we find in the Infiniti QX80. I'll go ahead and let the camera go in there for a closer look. Same engine, but it's been retuned for regular unleaded. Yep, regular unleaded. You don't need to feed this premium. Power does drop a little bit, but not by as much as I had assumed, actually. So instead of 450 horsepower like we find in the Infiniti, this engine produces 425 horsepower. But importantly, the same 516 pound-feet of torque, and it's made it to the same 9-speed automatic transmission. So towing and the way that it drives, honestly, performance should be very, very similar to the Infiniti. Now, we don't know official fuel economy numbers yet, but the QX80 is rated for 16 city, 19 highway. I would assume this is going to be pretty darn similar, although the Pro 4X might be a little bit lower because of the tire choice on this vehicle. We have those all-terrain tires, and generally that does drop the fuel economy down a little bit. Now let's check out the seats on the inside, see what these are like. Up front, again, as you might expect, very similar to the Infiniti QX80, and that's definitely a really good thing, whether we're talking about the North American model or the International Patrol. We have 4-way adjustable lumbar support over here for not just the driver, but also the front passenger seat. Now, definitely different than the Infiniti, of course, is that we're going to find several different seat versions up front. There's going to be a model with a 6-way power driver seat, 4-way power passenger seat. Then we get a bit more motion on the driver's side, bit more motion on the passenger side, and in the top end trims, both the Platinum and the Pro 4X, we get 4-way adjustable lumbar support for both the driver and the front passenger. Now, if I hop into the back seat here, we get the big difference between this and the Infiniti. And actually, one really big reason that you might want to get the Nissan over the Infiniti is going to be this seat right here, because the Patrol is going to be available as an 8-seat vehicle, Armada as well. Sorry if I'm using both of those interchangeably, because this is, again, that same vehicle internationally. I really appreciate the fact that the center seat belt is coming out of the seat itself, not out of the ceiling, so you don't have that particular worry back here. We also have a fold-down center armrest. Lots and lots of headroom. I'll just go ahead and let the camera come in for a bit here so we can see what kind of headroom we're talking about. I have, maybe about an inch or so at 6 feet tall back here. We do have this big panoramic moonroof. Let's go ahead and check out the folding of the second row seats here. You can fold down this center section in a 40-20-40 fashion, or this is a touch that we see in other Nissans. You can tilt and slide this seat forward while you have forward-facing child seats latch anchored into place. And that would work both in the outboard seat position and the center seat position, so you can get into the third row without unstrapping your child seat. On the latch anchor front, we have latch anchors in the outboard seating positions and a shared latch anchor system on the driver's side. So there's an additional latch anchor right here in the middle. If you wanted your child to be a little bit more centered in the back, you would actually strap them in sort of straddling the outboard seat and this middle seat. So we don't have a complete third set of latch anchors right there. Now I will go ahead and check out the third row. Let's see how this is. Again, that tilt slide mechanism is pretty handy for access. This seat is all the way back in its tracks. We have these huge pop-up headrests. Again, 3 seats back here in the third row. Pretty decent amount of legroom. This seat's all the way back. I have, maybe about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of legroom there, as you can see. Headroom, that's a bit more limited. Certainly better than we find in the Sequoia. And actually still pretty comfortable for maybe a 30-minute journey or so, because if I'm sitting more naturally rather than really trying to put my head back there, then there is a little bit of room. These third row seats are also power reclining, so you can put them really upright if you want to square off that cargo area, or you can recline them to the point where you will definitely notice some more limited headroom. Now, this center seat belt, it does come out of the ceiling, so keep that in mind if you plan on putting child seats back here. And speaking of child seats, we have latch anchors on the passenger side outboard seat only right there. So none in the middle, none on that 60% side of the third row. Most people are probably gonna spend most of their time with this third row folded, and you can actually do that from these buttons here in the side. It's not a one-touch. Let's see if I can dance around that seat right there. But it is handy that you can do that not just from the cargo area in the back, but also from the second row position. Speaking of the cargo area, we don't have official cargo room figures just yet, but again, expect this to be pretty similar to the QX80. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop the QX80 cargo numbers on your screen. Back here, We find that relatively square cargo area, again, a little bit lower to the ground than we find in the Toyota Sequoia, and certainly a lot more convenient than the previous Armada. The previous Armada had that really funky bumper that stuck really far out of the back. It meant that loading cargo in, you were really far away from where the cargo was. Here, it's certainly going to be a lot easier. We also have a little bit of additional storage space under that load floor. It's not an awful lot, but you know, it is there. And then the spare tire, that is tucked up right here underneath the vehicle. On the right side of the cargo area, we find the controls to power, flip, and fold the third row seats. Those are one-touch controls back here, as well as the second row seats, and then a button to raise and lower the air suspension to make loading cargo in the back a little bit easier, or to assist you in hitching up a trailer. This is one reason I do really like SUVs with adaptive air suspensions in the back, because you can raise the suspension up, and then you can put your foot down on the trailer, and then you can lower your suspension and then unhitch a little bit more easily. Saves some cranking time on some of those trailers. The interior design is definitely a big departure from the previous generation Armada. Since we're in the Pro 4X trim, we have the orange badging and the orange stitching on the steering wheel and on the dashboard as well. Depending on the trim you're looking at, there are going to be two different screen sizes for this twin LCD setup in the dashboard. If you get the base models, then we get screens that are just over 12 inches. If you get the top end trims, then we get these enormous, about 14.5-inch screens, not just for this center touchscreen, but also for this driver information display over here on this side. And this shares some of the same technology as the Infiniti QX80. So for instance, if I were to find the camera button, which is over here, and I hit that camera button, I have the option of expanding some of these views to use both screens. So for instance, in this forward camera view, I can actually expand that out to use the instrument cluster display as well. That's a really cool touch because it gives you a really huge view of what's going on up front. And since the hood is pretty long in this vehicle, if you're in a tight urban situation or if you're off-roading in a Pro 4X, you can more easily see exactly what's going on up front. The camera system also offers us the complete array of Nissan 360-degree camera views. That all-around camera view, you can get more detailed views of the front, back, sides, etc. There's even an invisible vehicle view right here. When the vehicle is driving, it would use image stitching technology to stitch the camera views together, and instead of this big black spot, it would actually show you what you have already run over. So if you're on an off-road trail and you want to see what's going on just in front of the tires, you'd be able to do that. Or if you ran over something and said, whoops, you'd also be able to see exactly what you'd hit over there. Now, I don't have time to go through all of the various screens, but if you want to check out our Infiniti QX video, you can get an idea of what some of these screens look like. On the back of the steering wheel, we have paddle shifters down over here on this side, up over there on that side, and this model has a powered tilt telescopic steering column. It also offers the Pro Pilot Assist 2.1 system that we've seen in other Nissan models. Moving over here, we find one of the unique features that we find in this generation Armada that you don't find in the Infiniti, and that is an integrated trailer brake controller. That's a really handy touch for something that tows 8,500 pounds. The engine start-stop button's there. Climate control buttons, they're down here. Lots of physical buttons, which I definitely appreciate, including physical buttons for the four-wheel drive system. So there's auto, 4-high, 4-low, locking rear differential, nice touch there, something that we didn't find previously. Heated and ventilated seats in the front, lots of chunky physical controls for that climate control, and then a rotary knob here for the drive mode selector switch. Interestingly, there are no additional drive modes for the Pro 4X models. The shifter, that's that button bank right there. Big roller style center console. I really like this design. I think it's a bit more attractive and a bit more practical than what we find in the Infiniti. Two big cup holders over there, big Qi wireless charging mat there as well. So that's easily going to be able to accommodate some of those larger smartphones. Moving over to the dashboard on the passenger side, we find more stitched materials up here. Soft touch injection molded materials, stitched materials in the middle. This has kind of a faux carbon fiber texture to this middle section right here, but that's all stitched together. Imitation wood trim. We don't know if real wood trim is going to be available in other world markets, but I suspect it probably will be. Big bin style glove compartment below that. And then moving on to the front doors, a reasonable portion of soft touch materials, really squishy armrests, something that we've seen from Nissan before, really comfortable there. Soft touch upper sections, and then harder plastics down there around the bottom of the door, like around that storage cubby and those speaker grills right there. Moving over to the seats, we find a two-way adjustable headrest, Pro 4X embroidered logo right there, height adjustable shoulder belts for the driver and front passenger, and definitely a unique seat design. I found these seats through my limited time in the vehicle to be pretty darn comfortable, and I really appreciate, if I go over here to the driver's seat, that the seat bottom cushion is not exceptionally short like we find in some vehicles. So I think taller folks will have a really good time finding a good driving position here, although I suspect some shorter people might find these seat cushions a little bit on the long side. Below the center console, we have some additional storage space right under there. You could definitely put some larger bags in there. And then if I try and twist the camera over here, we have a center console storage area that's about the size that you'd find in the average mid-sized SUV. It's not quite as big as some of the American full-size SUVs, but the armrest is really softly padded, definitely very comfortable. Going in for a closer look at the back seat area, we find 3-zone automatic climate control. If you want 4-zone climate control, you'll have to look elsewhere. 2 USB-C charge ports, a 12-volt power outlet, and in the cargo area there's also a 120-volt inverter outlet, but it's only good for 150 watts. If you're curious about the audio system, we have a Klipsch audio system available, but it doesn't have as many speakers as you'd get, obviously, in the Infiniti model. Again, in the Nissan Patrol, I would expect some of those luxury features to come down to the Patrol with the styling that we find in this model, but the feature set that we find in the Infiniti. Now let's move over to the Platinum trim. This is likely going to be the most expensive way you can get your Armada, although we don't know pricing details just yet. As you can see up front, we get a different grille and a different bumper arrangement to the Pro 4X. We get a unique grille insert, we have more chrome here, so these chrome slats, the Nissan logo has the white surrounds there. Different bottom bumper here. It's going to be a little bit more aerodynamic, possibly a little bit better on the fuel economy. We get the same engine and transmission, of course, and we don't get those recovery hooks or the skid plates. As we work our way around to the side, we get the exact same headlight modules, fog lights down there in that chrome section, and then around the side you'll notice that we don't have the black wheel arches that we find in the Pro 4X. This really gives us more of a sleek, more of a city look, and I have to say I think visually I like the side profile of this a little bit more versus the Pro 4X, but I kind of like the lower bumper in that Pro 4X. Let me know what you think. The other change, of course, is this sort of satin chrome Armada logo right there on the floating roof section. We still have the two-tone roof design in this model, and then out back we have Armada spelled out in that same sort of satin metallic effect right here in the back. Same sort of light pipe. Again, you will find this light pipe only in the top end trims. So Pro 4X with the premium package, and then this top end Platinum Reserve, they'll have that light bar. I don't know exactly what the tail light arrangement will be like in the rest of the lineup, but it's probably going to be the same lights here with just a sort of a black bar across the back. We'll know more a little bit later. The lower bumper, it's basically the exact same as the other model. Here you can see it with this hitch cover in place that covers up that hitch if you don't want to see it all the time. And then the exhaust tips, those are tucked up under the bumper. Now let's take a look around the Platinum Reserve version of the Armada. As you can see, this model is the 7-passenger version, so we have cup holders and basically a walk-through instead of that middle seat. And in kind of an interesting twist, Nissan does preserve more of a walk-through because this cup holder module, it's not right in the center of that area between these two seats. So it does give you a little bit of extra space so you can climb back there into the way back. The other thing you're going to notice is that we have this really intriguing two-tone sort of different baseball glove kind of color going on here with sort of a medium chestnut brown and a slightly lighter brown above that. I think that's a really attractive look. Moving up front in the Platinum Reserve trim, as you can see, the dashboard looks very similar to that Pro 4X version. We get the same 2-screen setup in the dashboard. The big difference is that we don't have the orange Nissan logo or the orange accent stitching. But here in the middle of everything, it's very much the same. Same trailer brake controller there. That's a really, again, a great touch. I kind of wish it had been colored brown with this interior color combo. I think it would have just matched with the dashboard just a little bit better, but we get the same chunky buttons, same drive modes here. The only other thing that we don't get here is the locking rear differential. However, we still get 4 low, and that is one big difference between this and the QX80. If you like a lot of the interior features that you find in the QX80, including the big screens, the massaging seats, but you want 4 low, you might want to check this out because we don't have a 2-speed transfer case in the Infiniti. The center console, that is basically the same sort of roller shade style cover right there, same sort of imitation wood trim, same sort of Armada there, and then very similar stitching going on here for the seats. This again is that two-tone design that you saw in the rear. Now moving over to the dashboard, since this model is in the shade, it's maybe a little bit easier to show you the ambient lighting. It's still pretty bright, but it's going to be right there under that soft touch section, right there around the imitation wood trim. If I can get in a little bit closer, you can actually see the LEDs right in there. That's where the ambient lighting strip is going to be. And then we also find some ambient lighting right there between those sections on the doors. And don't worry, the rear passengers haven't been excluded from the ambient lighting game. The second row gets an ambient lighting strip right there above the window switches. So how much will the new Armada cost? Well, that is one detail that we really don't know. We also don't know official cargo room specifications, legroom specifications, or exact dimensions. But it's based on the QX80 that we have already seen, so logically most of those dimensions are exactly the same as the Infiniti QX80. If you want to check out that video, be sure and do so after this video. Don't stop in the middle, of course. Pricing, it's probably going to be around $60,000 to $65,000 starting, would be my guess for the starting point. Currently, the current Armada starts a little bit less than that, but with all the new feature content on the inside, and of course that twin-turbo V6, you should expect the price tag to ratchet up a little bit. Now, if you're talking about the Platinum Reserve trim, which is this model, or the top-end Pro 4X that you saw earlier in the video, I suspect those are going to be the most expensive versions, and there's probably going to be some pricing overlap between this and, of course, the Infiniti QX80. So I would expect those models to be upwards of $80,000, although we don't know exact price details just yet. We do know, however, this is going on sale in 2024, right at the end of the year, and we should know more about pricing sometime in the early winter of 2024, and we should know details about exactly how it drives probably by the end of the year, somewhere around there. As always, be sure and sound off down there in the comment section below. Let me know, did Nissan do enough? What do you hope for the world market Nissan Patrol? I would say if there's one thing that I know a lot of folks, especially in Australia, would really love to see in their Nissan Patrol, it would be some sort of inline-six turbocharged engine under the hood that runs on diesel. We don't know whether that is coming to world market patrols, however. Nissan has been pretty tight-lipped, and of course we're filming this in North America, so all they really want to talk about is the Armada here, but they were really digging deep into the legacy of Patrol and the fact that this is going to be that exact world market vehicle sold around the world. Now, if you want more details on the Patrol, be sure and find us over at Facebook, because we're going to take a deeper dive into the Patrol when we can get more info on that. Again, I suspect that a lot of what we see in the Infiniti QX80 is actually going to happen in the Nissan Patrol, because in other world markets, the Patrol functions not only as the Armada, but also the Infiniti QX80, since Infiniti doesn't exist in every market around the world. Let me know what you think about that as well down there. And should Nissan have brought maybe more luxury touches than they already did to the Armada? I'd love to know that as well. See all of you later.